Kalam and the Calamity of Atheism, today on Dean's Dialogue. Hey guys, Dean Meadows here once again. Just want to thank all of you for listening into our podcast. And today we're going to begin a new series on the existence of God. You know, obviously, this is one of the most talked about, one of the most debated, one of the most heated subjects, not just for our time, but throughout the course of human history. And personally, I believe it's the most important subject anyone can investigate. This discussion about whether or not God exists is important for a variety of reasons. Number one, I think, is the trends that we see in Western civilization. More and more people are giving up their belief in God, which I happen to believe is obviously a bad thing. If someone's going to believe in God, there should be good reasons for their belief, right? We don't just believe in God blindly or because that's the way that we were raised. So it's not just a matter of personal tradition. It's not just a matter of personal experience. There has to be good reasons for us to believe in God. Also, I think the implications of worldview. You know, what does it mean for you and me and everybody else if God does exist? And what does it mean if God doesn't exist? Those are two really, I can't even quantify how important that is, because it impacts, or at least it should impact, the way in which we view our life, but also it should impact the way in which we view death as well. So one of the most influential and important arguments that has been used to build a cumulative case for the existence of God ever since the medieval time is what's known as the Kalam cosmological argument. Okay, so don't freak out. It's just a word. Sometimes we hear, or it's just a phrase. It's just a title. Sometimes when we hear these things, we get scared and we say, "Oh no, I don't know what they're talking about." It's really simple, and we're gonna look at that, at least the first part of it here on today's podcast. So it gets its name from the Islamic scholars during the medieval period who, hey, I give them all props, who are largely responsible for the development of the argument during the 70s and the 80s, and even now. The person who's most responsible for bringing this argument to the forefront is the philosopher named William Lane Craig. So the aim of this argument is to show that the universe had a beginning at some point in the past, that the universe isn't eternal, or the universe hasn't been around for an infinite amount of time. And so the argument states that it's, had a beginning at some point in the past. Therefore, because something can't come from nothing, there has to be a transcendent cause that brought the universe into being. Now, one of the things that we need to be careful of is that it just simply states a cause, a transcendent cause. It does not necessarily lead to the conclusion that it's the God of the Bible. We still have work to do with that. In reference to today's standard model of creation, the standard model of creation for today, or an explanation of how the universe came to be, is the Big Bang model. And so according to that model, as most of you probably know, the space-time universe originated ex nihilo around 15 billion years ago. Now, here's where the last series is going to come into play. I could sit on the podcast and I could just go in hard on the problems with the Big Bang. I could go in hard on establishing 6-day creationism, but I'm not going to do that. And that might make some people upset, and that's okay. But if we remember from the last series of the podcast, about practical apologetics, instead, of starting out with this us versus them, you versus me, Christianity, or creationism versus Big Bang cosmology. That's going to muddy the water. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to assume that the skeptic, that the atheist, that the agnostic is completely right. I'm going to assume that the Big Bang model is the right model to understand the existence of the universe. And I'm going to meet that person where they are. And what I'm going to seek to show is that even if I accept that model from their reasoning, even if I claim that the universe is 15 billion years old, the most plausible explanation is still that a transcendent cause is a reason for the universe's existence. So that's what I'm going to seek to do. So let's move on. And so one of the things that we need to do is we need to outline the argument itself. And so this is how the argument is outlined. The first premise is whatever begins to exist has a cause. Number 2, the universe began to exist. Number 3, therefore the universe has a cause. Now, for those of you who may not be familiar with philosophy, if the first 2 lines of the argument are true, it follows that the third is automatically true. And in my opinion, this is a logically tight argument, and so the only thing that remains is proving that the first 2 lines of reasoning are true. And so today, what we're going to look at first is just the bare bones of the first premise. The first premise is whatever begins to exist has a cause. And what's really interesting to me is that this seems intuitively true from the outset. It seems that this principle is grounded in the fact that something cannot come into existence from nothing. Once again, famed philosopher William Lane Craig stated that believing that something can come from nothing is worse than resorting to magic. And to be honest, William, Dr. Craig, I completely agree. It's interesting to me that sometimes people won't agree that this is the case. For instance, Lawrence Krauss, who is a famous atheist cosmologist, who said in his book, A Universe from Nothing, he states this: it is possible for quantum processes to create something from nothing. Now, later down the line, in the next podcast, we're going to talk a little bit about Dr. Krauss's work and what he claims in his book. Now, think about this for a second. If Dr. Krauss is correct, this leads to even another question, maybe not a greater question, but at least one other question. If the universe popped into existence out of nothing, then why doesn't anything or everything pop into existence out of nothing? Why is it just the universe? I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I would really appreciate it if, some green Benjamins popped into existence out of nothing into my bank account right now. I could definitely use that. Or, you know what? I really wish that I had a Xbox One, the newest edition. Why didn't that pop into existence out of nothing? I'm really thirsty right now. I don't understand why some coffee just hasn't popped into existence out of nothing right now. I would love to be, in front of Tiger Woods, so I could talk to him and I could get his autograph and I could get him to sign a couple things, so I could sell them on eBay. But he's not going to pop into existence out of nothing right in front of me. So why is it just the universe? It seems that somebody, somewhere, needs to file charges against nothing for being so partial, for being so prejudiced. I mean, I can't believe that nothing would be so prejudiced as to just allow the universe to pop into existence out of nothing. So, like, even right now, you're not worried that a wildebeest is going to pop into existence out of nothing and attack you while you're at work. Now, if you are, I'm going to suggest that you need to talk to somebody. Nor are any of you, nor am I worried that an elephant just popped into existence out of nothing and is at my house or is at your house urinating on the carpet. Nobody believes that that's taking place right now. But why? Why don't we? Or why shouldn't we? If something as vast as the universe can simply come into existence out of nothing, why doesn't the elephant? I mean, think about that. I should be living in fear every single day because I don't know what's going to pop into existence out of nothing today. I mean, could you imagine having that conversation with somebody, with your wife, with your spouse, with your kid? Well, Charlie, I really don't want you to go out to the street today because I'm scared that a bus is just going to pop into existence out of nothing and it's just going to land on top of you. And what's going to happen is, maybe, later down the street, Auntie Ann is going to have a house pop into existence out of nothing, land on her, and then somebody's going to take hold of her ruby red slippers, and then we're just going to be out of a job. See, nobody lives like that. Nobody thinks that because we intuitively know, and it's verified scientifically, that something doesn't come from nothing. So we can see that with this in mind, that the Kalam's first premise seems to be true. So, I mean, anytime you hear somebody say something like this, we need to ask them those questions. So thank you once again, guys, for tuning in to the podcast. The next podcast that we have, we're going to deal with some of the objections to the first line of reasoning. This is Dean Meadows for Dean's Dialogue and Apologia Institute. And remember, equip yourselves to engage culture.